What's going on? This is Ethan, the Games Adjuster, and today we are talking about the two-player game here of the Legend of Korra Pro Bending Arena. So this is an IP game based on the hit show Legend of Korra, which is the sequel of the Avatar IP. Avatar, very awesome show. If you haven't checked it out, do so. It's a really good show. It came out, I think, 2006 to 2009, so quite a bit old. Not the movie, by the way, not the last Airbender movie. That one's a flop, but the actual TV show, really good. And so Legend of Korra came out shortly after the original series finished. Probably not as good as the original, but still really good. And it follows Korra. And in this show, there is the sport of pro bending, which is kind of a I don't know, it's hard to describe. It's like a combat sport a little bit where there's rules on advancing lines, and you have a bender from each of the main types, the earth bender, fire bender, and water bender, and they're competing against each other. So let me go down to the table. I'll show you how the game plays. I do have the deluxe version here, so the base game is only going to come with two teams. The deluxe version comes with a bunch more, and I'll kind of show some of those off. And then we'll come back here and I'll give you some final thoughts. So here we go. Okay, so to begin the game, players are going to select a team of benders to play with. The base game comes with two teams here. You've got the White Balls Wolf Bats, and then you've also got the Republic City Fire Ferrets. So we're going to use the Fire Ferrets to kind of play out a few turns. We'll set the Wolf Bats here to the side. You'll also decide on player order. So one player is going to get a starting chi of 2. The other player is going to start with 1, I believe. All right, and then after that, you're going to also build your deck and optionally select some of the advanced technique cards to use. And I'm sorry, it's 2 and 3. And so let's just say Fire Ferrets are going to go first. There'll be a 2. The Wolf Bats token we're not going to worry about. So these technique decks that you'll have are made of some basic ones that have zeros on the top, and there are 2 for each color bender. Each team traditionally will have a water bender. In this example, we'll have Korra, a fire bendo, which is Mako, and Bolin, the earth bender. And that's these 3 models here. You got a fire bender, your earth bender, and then just off screen, we'll go to the board here in a minute, your water bender. And I should mention these do not come pre-painted. I've painted them. They're not the greatest paint job, so don't get distracted by that. Just pay attention to the game. So beyond your starting hand of 6 cards, which you'll be shuffling up and drawing 3 from, you're also going to get 3 strategy rows set up, 1 for each bender. Now each team has a ton of these cards to choose from, but you're only going to select 4 of them for each deck. So for example, I've gone ahead and picked out 1 of each of the cards. There are 4 different cards per bender. One of them is a special gold card. You kind of see the outline here on this one. It's got a gold outline here. That's like their most advanced technique. The other ones are duplicates of. You could form your own deck of 4, choosing some of the duplicates even. I've gone ahead and just picked 1 of each of the different ones just for variety. All right, so each player will do that. Then again, optionally, the advanced rules do allow for some of these more advanced technique cards that you can use. And so there are some for fire benders, there are some for water benders, and also some for the earth benders. So you can get all for your fire, 1 of each, any kind of mix and match combination up to 3 of them. And you can place those down here on your board to represent the different powers you may have. Some of these powers have one-time uses. So like this one here says blurred motion. Move your firebender 1 space, ignoring hold tokens, then amplify 1. But once you use it, it's turned over and gone. Others will say, when you use it, you'll need to roll this die here. If you get a yellow fan, then you'll put a yellow fan icon on the player that used it. So here, do the firebender that used heat blades. If he uses this again and gets another fan, or gets another fan through any other means, then he is eliminated from the game and removed from the board. So these are powerful cards, but can be quite risky. And again, there's all kinds of different ones here. Target 1 opposing bender adjacent to your water bender. Reveal the top card of target bender strategy deck, or remove it rather, from the game. Very cool. All right, so you'll choose those optionally if you want to play that advanced game. And then after that, you are ready to begin. So Each round of this game consists of 4 main phases. So the first phase each player is going to do is keep focused. So every player is going to have this chi track here, which is basically how you'll buy more of these cards from your strategy road. This is what this is called. And these cards have a cost on the top right. This one here costs 3. So every turn you will get 1 free chi at the beginning, and that's called keep focused. After that, you'll play hard, which is the next phase. And so in this phase, this is where your hand of 3 cards comes into play. So we've shuffled up our deck of 6 cards here. We drew 3. These are the 3 options we have. We can optionally discard one of these cards for chi and get 1 chi no matter what the card was, or we could play the card. Each of these cards has a variety of symbols on them. So we'll start here with this card for Bolin. And this is the bender who has to use this technique. So if I were to play 1-2 punch, Bolin could block, this is what the shield icon means, one of the tokens in his area, and then I could place out 1 token in 2 different areas, 1 space away. The 1 represents how many tokens are placed. The number in the black area here represents the range that the token can be placed. So let's kind of go up here to the board a little bit, and we'll kind of show a little bit more about what's going on. So we zoom in here just a little bit. All right, so let's say we are here and we've got this card played. Okay, 1-2 punch. Right now there is nothing in Bolin's space, but we can go ahead and place out 1 token into different areas. So tokens have to follow this concept of spread, and spread is 2 things. One, I'm sorry, not spread, but placement rather in general. You can never put a token in the same space that the active bender is in. So in this case, Bolin would take 2 of these are tokens, 1 for each time he's going to place. They can never be placed in the same spot he is in, and they can never be placed in the same spot as one of his tokens is already in. So in this example here, if I put this one 1 space away, that can go here, that could even go on my side as kind of defense, that could go over here. Any space that's touching, even at a corner, is considered adjacent. So this is diagonal here, that's 1 away. But I could not put the second one from the second part of this action, or third part, in the same spot. I would need to choose a different space. And that's only if my tokens were there. If the opponent's tokens, and these are double-sided, so this could be the opponent's and then my side. If his token was here, I could place this here. Now another concept to remember is token annihilation. So some of these cards have the rounded or circle icons here. Others will have kind of this jagged icon, like on this Firestorm card. What that means is anything that's rounded can annihilate other tokens. So this example here, let's pretend somehow this Earthbender had put a token here and I was to place this token on top of it. Those 2 would cancel each other out and be immediately removed from the board. However, if, same example, there was a token here and Mako had played Firestorm, well, not only could he place 3 tokens up to 4 spaces away, those 3 tokens pierce, meaning they cannot be blocked by other tokens that are pre-existing. So if I was to put 3 fire tokens out in that same spot, the Earthbender's tokens would stay there, and these would be placed here just like that. All right. So some of the other symbols you might see, going back to this Firestorm card, are going to be the special symbols for your faction. So this faction here, the Fire Ferrets, has this counter bend symbol. Others will have this just basic movement, which is the foot icon. Movement is pretty simple. You can only move within the same zone that you are in. So Mako can move left, he can move right, he can always be in the same space as other people, but he can never move back or forward. It's just left and right. And again, you can occupy the same spaces. So these cards have to be followed in the order that they are listed. So I'd have to place 1 fire token 1 space away, and there are some plastic tokens that come with the deluxe version, so I'm just going to use those from now on. So I can put that here, then I do have to move, so I might move here, and then I'll put my last one maybe here. Then I keep playing out the rest of my hand just to kind of play one full turn. So maybe I'll put another fire token over here. Then I'll move back over here. Then I'll put one here, which cancels that out. All right. And then lastly, Bolin would go. He would block in his own space, and that's where the shield is, always in your own space. Nothing to block. Then he would place out a couple of tokens. Boom. And maybe we'll put some right there. Okay. Now, once you've placed out all the tokens according to your cards, those cards are discarded. And then you will check to see if you've taken hits. And that phase is pretty simply called check hits. So what happens is any tokens that you place will stay on the board until the opponent's next check hits turn. So here, because I was first player, there was no tokens to deal with. But had the opponent placed tokens out on my side, I would need to take those hits. If ever, and we'll just use the plastic tokens here for the opponent, if ever you're in a space with unblocked tokens from the opponent, you will take hits. You will take one hit for each token there, and you will move that many spaces back. So in this example, if Bolin could not block these hits, he would move back 2 spaces. After you've moved back, you can readjust yourself in any of the available zones of that space that you are now in, and then your turn is, and you're done. Any tokens that were left without anybody or left over are then removed from the board. If you took enough hits to be completely wiped off the board, then that player is eliminated. So here 3 tokens exist. Bolin would go 1, 2, 3 into the water. These tokens are removed. Bolin is removed. And then any of the cards left in Bolin's strategy road here would be removed also. However, the cards in your deck stay in your deck and clog up your deck, but can again still be discarded for chi. The winner of the game will be either the player who first eliminates all of the benders from the opposing team, or the player who has advanced the furthest onto the opponent's side when the game ends, or if there's still a tie, the player who has momentum, which will be tracked with this token, when the game ends. And so the game can end in a variety of ways. One of the ways is just quick elimination, if they're all knocked off. One of the other ways that will happen is if a player would go through their entire strategy deck, strategy row, and there were no cards left, then they would start rolling this yellow die. If the fan is rolled, or this maroon die with yellow fans, if it was rolled a yellow fan icon, then the game ends immediately, and we'll check those in-game conditions. All right, so let's just talk about a few more things here, and then I'll kind of show off some of the other characters that come in the game. One of the other things to consider is when you are placing some of these tokens, they may have special effects. So here I've got some hold tokens, and some of these cards will have those on them, like this card here, which is called Liquid Lash. If my waterbender were to play this, they would first block a token in their own space, place 2 annihilating or piercing elemental tokens up to 2 spaces away, and in that space they would also place one of these hold tokens, which again are double-sided. What these hold tokens do is they will cancel the first move action that that player needs to make. So if it were to finish out and the wolf bats took their turn, and let's say Tano the waterbender was to play this card here, River's Edge, his move would be canceled and the hold token would then be removed. Then he would continue placing tokens like normal. So he could place 2 water tokens up to 3 spaces away, and we'll just use the cardboard one for him, and we might put those over here, the waterbender. All right, so that's one of the tokens you'll see. The wolf bats themselves come with these daze tokens, which is a special ability they have. Very similar to the hold token, except it cancels the first line on the card no matter what it is. So if it was a move, the move would be canceled. If it was a shield, the shield would be canceled, attack, whatever it is. The fire ferrets here have this ability called counterbend. So it says here, first, we'll target any space with your opponent's tokens matching the active bender's element, and then flip them to your side. Then you may move the stack 1 adjacent space from its original position following spread and token annihilation rules. Same rules apply as when you're normally placing them, but you can then move those tokens to the other side and kind of throw them back at them, hence counterbend. Let's see here. So just kind of finishing out the turn, and then we'll get into the other characters here. After you check for hits, You will then do the stay sharp phase, and this is basically where you're going to manipulate your strategy row. So going back down here to your cards, when you do the stay sharp phase, if you've got these cards still available, so let's say it's like this, you can spend your chi. So we had 3 chi here. I could spend maybe one of them to get the liquid lash, put that on top of my deck. I could have instead spent all 3 and then gotten the rock barrage, put that on top of my deck, whatever it is you want to do. Whether you bought cards or not, you will need to then flip over a new card and cover the old one up, meaning you will no longer have access to the one underneath until you buy the one on top. And you will always flip over a new card each round, whether you buy something or not. But the cool part is it goes straight on top of your deck. So pointing out that first example, when we used 2 fires and a earth card, it would behoove me maybe to buy a fire card if I can afford it right away, because then my firebender's not just stuck there in the same spot. I'll have some more flexibility. But of course your opponent can know that too, and if you can't afford it, they might try to target your firebender even, because they know you've already spent the 2 cards you had, and you did not buy another one, so there's a good chance that you probably don't have another one in your deck right now, unless you're further in the game and you bought a lot of them. So there's some of the strategy and some of the tactics there. And that's pretty much it. After that, you'll go to the other player's turn. They'll continue playing things out until the end game conditions are met. If ever, the players would have a space between them. So going back to the board here, let's say we've taken some hits somehow, that was cleared out. That wouldn't have happened normally with that amount of hits. This player would have been eliminated. But for example, let's just say something like this has happened. If there's ever a full clear line between the 2 teams, then the remaining players on the team that push the other team back will advance, and they can readjust in any configuration they would like to. In the actual show, the game kind of pauses. There's like an alarm sound. The lines light up on the board, these little silver lines. The team advances, and then the referee tells them go. So that's kind of what this simulates. Any tokens on the board are then immediately removed, regardless of whose turn it was. And then the team who made the advancement will take momentum. So here the fire ferrets would take that. But then the team that lost momentum or got pushed back will immediately get to take another turn. Also, whenever a player is eliminated, they immediately get 3 chi. The only exception to that would be if they get eliminated by fouling out with the fans, then they are instead removed from the game like normal, but there is no chi for losing, so to speak. So I think that's about it. I know I've said that a couple times. Sorry, I just want to make sure I'm covering everything. I guess the last thing I'll mention is spread. So some of the waterbenders cards will have this icon here. So what this means is you're going to place up to 3 spaces away 3 water tokens, and then 1 water token in a space adjacent to where you placed the original 3. And this simulates kind of flooding the area. So this one's called flow as water. And as water does, it tends to flow. So if I was to play that with Korra here, we put 3 right there, and then we'll spread that over into the adjacent space here, right? And that's how that works. Okay, so I think that's enough about the mechanisms of the game. There's tons of cards. I'm not going to go over every single one. What I want to kind of show off now is some of the other things that come with the game. So we've talked about the fire ferrets and their abilities. We've talked about the wolf bats and their abilities, but there are a ton of other factions in the deluxe version. So here we've got the porcupines, the black quarry porcupines. They have this pressure token, and what pressure does is when it is in a space with an attack, the opposing bender suffers hits in a space twice as many times. So for example, if I had 1 fire token unblocked, they would have to take 2 hits back. If there was 2 tokens, that's 4 hits, completely wiped off the board. So very devastating pressure ability here. It's not enough just to kind of try to block the tokens. If you're going to take a hit, you really want to try to move out of the space. The Rabaroos here have this rally token that they can place on their board. If they collect enough of them and they play a card with this blitz icon, they can spend 2 of those rally tokens they collected to immediately draw the top card of their deck and play it. So you can really start to combo a bunch of extra moves if you play enough of those cards. The Tiger Dillos here will have the veteran ability, which lets them gain 2 chi instead of 1. So they want to maybe get in a situation where they don't have to move or block or anything, or may not go on the offensive right away. They'll get a bunch of great cards, and then they'll start attacking. So could come back and maybe like a comeback story with them if they get pushed against the wall, but then come back with a bunch of strong cards. The Buzzard Wasps here have the Sting ability. There's no tokens representative of this. It just says you may sting a vendor in the target space. If you do, that vendor's team loses a chi and decreases their track. So some of the cards will have that Sting icon. It's just a way to keep them from buying some of their good cards. You've also got, those were the teams, you can also use solo benders. So the rules are slightly different with the solo bender. Here we've got Unalak from, I think, season 2 or 3. He actually never played in the arena, but it's cool that they brought these characters in. He's got the Siphon Soul ability. I'm not going to read through it, but the solo bender rules are slightly different in that you only have one deck of cards that the one bender can use. They have much better mobility because it's only one person that's moving around and constantly doing a lot of things. These solo benders are very powerful in the lore of the game and therefore are really good on their own. And with that, even though you only have one bender, you actually still have 2 strategy decks. So you'll grab the amount of cards you need for the game, you'll shuffle them up, you'll take your basic cards to start, and then you will flip over 2 face-up cards in your strategy row. You can choose from either one, but you'll always need to flip over 1 more. So Unalak's in the game. We've got the protagonist herself, Avatar Korra, who is the master of all the elements here, and she has this elemental mastery ability here. Kuvira, which is from the last season, season 4. Well, she's in some of the other seasons, but very prominent in the last season. She's a metal bender, and she has this prowess ability, very cool. And then you've got Pali from season 3, I think it is. Very, very cool. She's got combustion bending. So basically, she'll put out these tokens on the board that count as if they were elemental tokens. They do not annihilate other tokens and cannot be annihilated by other tokens. So unless you move out of the way, you are getting blown up by the combustion bending that she has coming from her head there. And then lastly here, a little extra bonus here. This is actually an expansion board for a co-op variant that you can play with Amon and his Equalist from season 1 and the Chi blockers. And I believe on the back is, I'm sorry, this side might just be his team, and then this side maybe is the solo, but I think you can actually play Amon on his own as a bender, which is kind of cool. Yeah, and so that's some of the cards in here. I've already shown you some of these advanced cards. The minis are pretty cool. I've painted a few of them. So here we've got Pali, which is maybe one of the better ones we did, and Unalak here. Not the greatest, I know. And then some of the other benders we try to find just pictures of, and they're all really cool little models. I've only kind of primed these, but you can see how cool they look in their action pose with the fire and the elements around them, water. The earth benders have these little discs in the show. So yeah, there you go. That's pretty much it. Let me go back up top. I know that was kind of a lengthy explanation, but I really wanted to cover it all, and I just get excited talking about this game, which is a little bit of a spoiler. So let's go back up top and I'll tell you what I think about it.
Okay, there you go. Let's talk about it. So we'll start with the theme. I think the theme is awesome. So I am a huge fan of the show. And when I got this game, I wasn't expecting it to be great. I really just wanted something from the show. I had just finished watching Avatar again. Finally got around to watching Korra when it became available on Netflix. And I loved it. I just loved the world building in the show to begin with. And they just expanded on that in the sequel with this kind of 1920s gangster vibe mixed with the Avatar world. So really cool. And the pro bending sport, they don't show it much beyond the first season, but it seemed cool, and I like kind of those combat type sport games. So they put that into a board game. And again, I'm not expecting it to be great, but it actually is pretty good. I think they did a good job of keeping true to the rules, in that you can push the opponents off, and that's how you'll win the game. If you eliminate all the opponents off the board, then you'll win the match and it's over. Or if you push them back far enough, you can do a line advance. You'll get the momentum, but then they'll be able to shoot right back at you. So really, really cool. I really like it. I think they did a great job with the theme. As far as the production goes, it's hit and miss. So I think the minis overall are really good. In the overview, I showed you some of mine. They're not the greatest. I'm not a painter by any means. We just kind of did it one day on a whim because we were really into the game. And I think some of them turned out okay. others not so much. But for the most part, they're really good minis. The board is cool. It could have been maybe some fans in the stand or something would have been nice, but the arena combat area itself is pretty solid. The cards are okay. They're a little thin. They're really long and tall, which I like. They maybe could have used some artwork. I think functionally they're fine because they do clearly illustrate what you need to do on your turn and the order of operation, so to speak. But I don't know, maybe just a little bit more artwork would have been cool. The main gripe I'm going to have production wise is going to be with the tokens. So you've got the cardboard tokens, which are double sided with blue and then a greenish blue or orange and a orangey red. They're not that different. And even the plastic components aren't that great either. They're kind of long and yes, they stack, but almost too big for the board. So I don't know another way they could have done it. Maybe cubes or something. I know they wanted to kind of keep it looking thematic a little bit. I think the Earthbender discs are probably the best thing. They actually look like the disc from the show, but yeah, I don't know. I don't know what the solution is on it, but I don't really like the components as they are, especially as often as you're having to use them and manipulate them and move them around. Something a little bit more color friendly to the players to differentiate the two from each side, and also just kind of user friendly as far as being able to move them around without kind of getting too jumbled up would have been nicer, I think. So that's the biggest miss for me, but otherwise, I think it's pretty solid. As far as the rules go, it's not a long rule book. They really do a good job of kind of explaining token annihilation, what token spread is. The part that I think maybe could have been a little bit better would be some of the I don't maybe the advancement rules a little bit kind of get a little weird if you don't really know the show, so you just kind of have to read through that, and it doesn't make sense. Like, oh, well, I advance on them, I have momentum. Why do they get to go again? But it's because their backs are against the rope, and it kind of maybe like a rubber band mechanism, and that the losing team gets a chance to kind of push back. So it works, in keeping the game competitive. But it can be a little confusing on when to do that and which cards you're supposed to take out of the deck when you eliminate someone, things like that. So they do give you a couple player aids, which I showed, and those are helpful. Just maybe something explaining those line advancements would have been nice too. As far as the gameplay goes, I love it. I think it's great. I think, again, true to the show, they did a great job of just capturing what it feels like to be these different vendors. So the cards themselves tied to the specific vendors that they're for. So the Earthbender cards tend to have a few more defensive maneuvers like the blocks and things that are helping them close by, whereas the Firebenders maybe got a lot more agility, and they're like in the show, the character of Mako is able to jump around and do kind of this kickboxing firefighting thing. So he's more agile and able to move further. The waterbenders have the spread token basic ability, and so when they place out, they kind of flood the area a little bit, which is like water. It doesn't just stop; it keeps kind of moving. So all of those powers feel thematic in the different benders. Plus, when you throw in the other benders that technically never fought in the arena, like Pali from the Red Lotus, her combustion ability is really cool, really powerful. I love the way that they made each of the teams feel different too. Some of these things didn't really play out in the show necessarily, but I like that they kind of had maybe the agency to kind of decide how they wanted these teams to be different and give them the different powers like rally or pressure, things of that nature. So overall, really cool. Um, the only thing maybe I don't like about the gameplay is the referee die ending can be a little anticlimactic. So I had a game recently where I was pretty much winning the whole game. At the very end, they knocked one of my guys off, and then we got down to like 2-2. And at the very end, they took momentum, rolled the die, and they won. So had I rolled the yellow fan, before that happened, when all the times it was I had momentum, I would have won. But then they flipped it the one time, rolled the dice, and they won. So that can be a little disheartening, but it's a quick enough game that it's not that big a deal that you can play maybe best 2 out of 3, and you're not really worried about the one lucky loss. So yeah, I think the gameplay is really, really good. As far as the time goes, again, it's quick. You can play two or three, best two out of three, something like that, and probably an hour 15-ish or so if you play the same teams. If you do a lot of the deck construction and team changing and looking at the different cards that you can power up your team with, that might add a little bit of length, but that's optional. So if you really just want to go bare bones, you can just pick one of the pre-made teams, throw them in the arena, play that out, pick another team, throw them in the arena, and go forward. So you don't have to use those things, but they are cool. Or I like that you can, it's not something I've tried yet, but you could mix and match even. So you could take, Mako from the Fire Ferrets, put it with Tano from the Wolf Bats, and then put it with someone else from the other team. So that's kind of cool too. Also, you can have, three against one against one with the solo bender. So there's a lot of cool variety there, which can add to the time, but I think I'd rather have the variety. So that's the last thing here, variety. We've already kind of hit on it. I think it's great. You have all the different teams if you get the deluxe version. If you get the base game version, it'll be cool for a while, but you're going to play out those teams a little bit. So my recommendation, if you're going to get this game, is search out the deluxe version. I think it's probably like 80 to $100 or so. So it's not super cheap, but you get a lot in it. And again, if you're a fan of the show, I think you're going to want that anyways. So final thoughts. Yeah, I think it's really, really, really good. So it's probably not a world beater of a game. There's probably other combat games that are different, and this one's a little more abstract in the sense that there's not health for the players. They're just kind of being moved back for unblockable hits. But I like that. I think it makes the game accessible. It doesn't give you too many variables to think about. It's just, can I meet this number to block it or not? And if I don't, I'm going to be moving back that many spaces. It's a very simple combat system, but it is still puzzly and fun. And for an IP game, it's pretty good. Again, I can't express that enough. So, yeah, I really like it. Rating wise, man, I'm being a homer here for theme. I'd probably give it like a 9 out of 10 for me, honestly. I just love this as a good, fun two-player game. There is even an expansion, Amon's Invasion, I think it's called. I have that in the game here. It adds a co-op mode. It's okay. I'd rather play the versus mode, but to have that in there too is even that much cooler. So again, if you like the show, must buy. If you kind of like the show and you're like, that seemed a little interesting, I would still check it out. I think you'll be surprised at how good a game it actually is. And if you don't like the show, then maybe not one you want to seek out necessarily, because I think the theme definitely helps my enjoyment of it. So there you go. That is the Legend of Korra Pro Bending Arena. If you are a fan, check it out. If you played the game, let me know what you thought. Let me know maybe who your favorite team is. If you've seen the show, tell me what your thoughts are on the show, even in the comments below. Remember to like, comment, and subscribe, and we will catch you on the next one.